Well, welcome to TargetTruthMinistries.com. And in this series on the End Times 2068, today we're going to be discussing the Jubilee. Last time, I believe it was the Feasts of Israel and the feast that Jesus might come back on. Today it's the year of Jubilee, and many believe the year of Jubilee is when Jesus will return. So we're going to discuss what year that is. And we use one book in this series to refer to extensively, and that's the Bible. We do have other books, which you see pictured in the background here, which we use and will refer to, but they all refer to the Bible too. So these books on the wall, you can purchase at Amazon or through our Target Truth Ministries website. This one book here on the Book of Chronologies is only through our ministry website. Each one of them are $10, and that's a lot cheaper than you would pay through Amazon with the postage and the tax and all that stuff. Or, you know what, if you cannot afford a book, we will mail you one for free. We give them away all the time to people that can't afford them. So anyway, that's what our ministry is about. And I just encourage you to try and invite someone to look at this series, try to invite someone to our next meeting. We meet at the Hope Center in Ukiah, which is located at 150 Lou Street on the first Tuesday of each month. And today, the Jubilee, praise God, Jesus is returning. That's great news. The end is coming. Aren't you excited? Our purpose here is not to set a date. Even though we will explore certain dates, our purpose is to make people aware that Jesus is returning and that we don't want to be like the people at Jesus' first coming. You'll recall when he said in Luke chapter 4, verses 18 to 21, he says, "You did not recognize the day of my arrival." And so we don't want to be like that. We want to be prepared for Jesus' return. Now, this session will try and establish more closely when Jesus might return and when the tribulation period, talked about in Matthew 24, verses 3 to 22, when that tribulation period might begin before Jesus' return. And remember Jesus' words, for the sake of the elect, the saved, in Matthew 24:22, he says he will shorten the time of that hardship for us. And next time, we're going to discuss the rapture, the day when those who are saved, Jesus talked about in John 3, verses 1 to 7, he says they will be taken to be with Jesus. And the question is, will this rapture be before the tribulation of the end times or after the tribulation of the end times? Many today suggest that there will be a special or secret rapture to save the elect before the awful tribulation of the end days. And we'll discuss that popular teaching next time. Previously, a couple months ago, we provided information on how Israel, being established in 1948, was a fulfillment of prophecy from Ezekiel 4, verses 1 to 7. And we also referred to the words by Jesus in Matthew 24, verses 38 and 39, concerning the fig tree generation, when Jesus referred back to Genesis 6 concerning Noah and that generation, that God will only have patience with mankind for 120 years, a generation. 120 years after the establishment of Israel, the fig tree in 1948, 120 years is 2068, the farthest out date. And also remembering, of course, that Jesus said the time would be shortened. And also previously last month, we discussed that Jesus will return on feast number 5, the Feast of Trumpets, the final harvest feast, the appointment given to Moses for Israel to honor forever. And Jesus actually fulfilled feast appointments numbered 1 through 4 exactly on the very days that Moses was told to remember them by God. And the next feast or appointment to be fulfilled by Jesus is the final harvest feast, feast number 5, the Feast of Trumpets. Now, today, we're going to look at what many scholars, both Jewish and Christian, see as the year that Jesus will return, the year of Jubilee, held every 50th year, which celebrates the restoral of everything and the forgiveness of all debts. Will Jesus return before 2068 on feast number 5, the year of Jubilee? Good question. When is the year of Jubilee? The Jubilee year is the year everything was restored. All debts are forgiven. It's mentioned and written about in Leviticus 25. And the interesting thing is that today no one, neither Jew or Christian, can state for certain exactly when the year of Jubilee is. And this is because Israel quit keeping the year of Jubilee long ago due to Israel's disbursement after Jesus' time. They were dispersed in 70 AD. And in 1948, Israel was restored. But still, even today, the temple for Israel is not yet established. And with it, of course, the Jubilee has not begun either. The Jewish people quit keeping the Jubilee when the temple was destroyed, not following God's direction to keep the year of Jubilee for all generations. Also, previously last month, we discussed, let's see, I don't know why that's coming up. Also, previously last month, we discussed the establishment that Jesus will return on feast number 5, the Feast of Trumpets. The final harvest feast, the appointment given to Moses for Israel to honor forever. And Jesus actually fulfilled feast or appointments number 1 through 4 exactly on the very days that Moses was told to remember them by God. And the next feast or appointment to be fulfilled by Jesus is the final harvest feast, number 5, the Feast of Trumpets. Now, today, we'll look at what many scholars, both Jewish and Christian, see as the year that Jesus will return. The year of Jubilee held every 50th year, which celebrates the restoral of everything and the forgiveness of all debts. Will Jesus return before 2068 on Feast 5 on the year of Jubilee? Good question. When is the year of Jubilee? Well, the Jubilee year is the year everything is restored, all debts are forgiven, Leviticus 25. The interesting thing is that today no one, neither Jew or Christian, can state for certain exactly when the year of Jubilee is. And this is because after Israel's disbursement, after Jesus' time in 70 AD, until 1948, when Israel was restored, they never kept track of it. But still, even today, the temple for Israel is yet to be established, so they still haven't even tried to set a Jubilee date. And the temple was destroyed and not following God's direction, and they didn't keep the year of Jubilee generation to generation, no matter where the temple was. Now, even in disbursement, Israel could have erected a tabernacle, a tent, just like when they were with Moses and when they first entered into the Promised Land. In other words, they could have kept the Jubilee and the worship at a tabernacle going. But Israel, being dispersed in 70 AD, didn't see a need to restore land back or forgive all debts. So they decided not to practice the Jubilees, claiming there was no temple. God, of course, knows exactly when the Jubilee is to occur. It's his command given to Moses for all generations to keep. And biblical scholars believe that on one of the Jubilees, the future that Jesus will return to fulfill the purpose of the Jubilee, to restore everything and to eliminate all debts. And since, as discussed in a previous End Times update about Israel being established as a nation again in 1948, after many years of not having a nation, and also discussed about the 120 years God told us about in Genesis 6 and Noah, and the maximum time of patience God would have with man, which Jesus himself referred to, we therefore come to this understanding that the farthest out date of 2068. Now, if you try to find a Jubilee date within these 120 years between 1948 and 2068, there should be two possible Jubilee dates. which would fall during these 120 years, two 50-year periods within this 120 years of the end. And in order to establish a Jubilee year sometime in the past, so that we can then establish the dates of the Jubilees in the future, most scholars point to the Bible and Jesus' own words in Luke chapter 4, verse 16 to 20. And then Jesus referred in a reference to Isaiah 61:2, when Jesus, at the age of 30, began his teachings where he states the Jubilee year at his age 30 by declaring the acceptable year of the Lord, which scholars agree is referring to the year of Jubilee, again in reference to Isaiah 61:2 and Leviticus 25. The acceptable year of the Lord, the year of Jubilee. But there's another problem in establishing a date certain. Even if Jesus at age 30, when he began his ministry, was referring to that year of his ministry, beginning on a Jubilee year, there are still various dates that would be considered because scholars can't agree upon whether Jesus was born on neg 2 BC or neg 3 BC. Some say even neg 1 BC, neg 4 BC. But majority point to 2 or 3 BC as being the dates of Jesus' birth. Now, I've done a study myself, and it points to 2 BC. And if you want a copy of it, just go to our website, targettruthministries.com, request my message on the birth of Christ. It's absolutely free. And regardless of which year is correct, we can move forward in time from neg 2 BC or 3 BC and count the Jubilees after this date when Jesus was 30 of the acceptable year of the Lord, which would be either 27 AD or 28 AD when Jesus was 30. And we can go forward and we can come up with the years of Jubilee, which would occur in this 120 years of patience that God is having with us right now. And it began in the year Israel was established in 1948, and 120 years later being 2068. The farthest out date, God is going to have patience with us until Jesus returns. But there is still one more problem. The Jubilee itself. If you go to Leviticus 23 and read it, it tells us of the Jubilee, and Israel refers to it as the acceptable year of the Lord, the year everything is restored, all debts are forgiven, and most Christians view 50-year Jubilees as occurring every 50 years, and it goes forward. So from when Jesus was 30, which would be in the year 28, if Jesus was born in 2 BC, have to calculate all this stuff, then the Jubilees after 1948 and before 2068, the farthest out date of the end of the world, the Jubilees would fall in the years of 1978 and 2028, our time. However, Jewish scholars point out that the Jubilee year was the 50th year, but it was also the first year of the next 49 years. In other words, there were only 49 years between Jubilees. And this would place the Jubilees after 1948 and before 2068, the farthest out date, as 1987 and 2037, our time. Again, assuming Jesus was born in neg 2 BC. So let's consider these various dates, depending on whether one counts Jubilees every 49 years or every 50 years. And due to the fact that the earlier dates of 1978 and 1987 are past, and Jesus did not return on these dates, and due to the 49-year cycles for the Jubilee, which I believe the Jewish scholars are correct, and also selecting the year Jesus proclaiming the Jubilee at age 30 as 28 AD, I therefore believe the next and only Jubilee to occur before 2068 will be 2037. Of course, we shouldn't reject 2028 as a possibility, as some scholars hold to the 50 years between Jubilees, not 49. Well, furthermore, there is to be a tribulation period before Jesus' return, which Jesus states will be shortened by him, Matthew 24, verses 3 to 22. And many Christian theologians believe that this period of tribulation is the last week of Daniel's 70th week. You can read about that in Daniel chapter 9, verses 26 and 27. In other words, a period of 7 years, meaning the tribulation period before the Jubilee in 2037 would begin in 2030. Or if one holds to the date of the Jubilee as 2028, then the year date for the tribulation to begin would be 2021. And many would say, as we have witnessed, that the tribulation is indeed accelerating now, and that the tribulation period has already begun. And coming years will accelerating even more. I mean, are you ready for this? Now, Daniel's 70th week would appear to actually occur, however, at the end of the millennium, the short period of the end that John wrote of in Revelation 20, verse 7 to 15. Because that's when sin is eliminated and everlasting righteousness occurs. And if you go to Daniel 9, verse 24, that's what you read. It comes about as a result of Daniel's 70th week, is the everlasting righteousness and sin being eliminated. Therefore, I don't believe Daniel's 70th week is actually referring to our tribulation time. I think it's referring to that short period at the end of the millennium. I believe Jesus in Matthew 24:15, when he referred to the abomination that declares desolation, he was referring to Daniel's warning in Daniel 11, verse 31, and Daniel 12, verse 11, where Daniel warns of the appointed time and the abomination of desolation, which points to a period of 1,290 days and 1,335 days, which is very similar to the prophecy of the 7 years of the middle of the 7 years of Daniel 9, verse 27. Now, these are two different prophecies of Daniel, which both point to an end. And there is an end of this age, and there's also an end to the millennium. The millennium, not this age, does finally bring in everlasting righteousness and the end of sin, which matches Daniel's 70th week prophecy. So yes, there will be a tribulation period before the return of Jesus, before the Jubilee, when everything is finally restored. But we must be careful in our understanding of different tribulation periods. So let's review some scriptures regarding the tribulation period at the end of this world. And just to accommodate all views, let's suppose that Daniel's 70th week, the last 7 years prophesied in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 to 27, let's assume that that does apply to our time, not the millennium, as I believe it does, just to see how it might fit in. And using Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 to 27 as a starting place, a holy place, a tabernacle or temple, will be set up and in use by Israel years before the end of the world, either 2,520 days or 2,555 days before the end of the world, depending on whether one uses a 360-day calendar or a 365-day calendar. The Jewish year is 360 days, and our modern solar year is 365 and a quarter days. And also remember that Jesus said he would shorten the time anyway. So in Revelation 8:14, written after Jesus by John, it states a holy place or a tabernacle or a temple will be in use 2,300 days before the end. So we have Daniel's prophecy and we have John's prophecy written after Jesus' time about this same thing. Remember, Jesus said he would shorten the time, so either one of these could apply, and he might shorten the time from either one of them. 7 years equals 2,520 days. 6 and a quarter years equals 2,300 days. And so Daniel, when he refers to 7 years, 2,520 days, and Revelation 8 by John refers to 2,300 days or 6 and a quarter years. So in fact, it actually doesn't matter if we use the passage of Daniel's 70th week, because John's Revelation 8:14 states that 2,300 days before the end of the holy place will be in use. So both passages could fit fine. Again, I believe Daniel's 70th week applies to the millennium and not this age, because it tells us that what happens in the end of that passage is you have an end of sin and a restoration of paradise, everything were everlasting righteousness. And that only happens at the end of the millennium, not the end of this age. Okay, either way, we've established at least a minimum of 2,300 days before the end of this age, and that a holy place will be established. So moving on, Daniel 11:31 and 12:11 through 12 state that the abomination of desolation will arise and the holy place will be desecrated. And the end of the world occurs 1,335 days after the holy place is desecrated. And we're encouraged to endure to the end of the 1,335 days. Encouraged to endure the whole time. And also remember, Jesus said he would shorten the time. Now, John in Revelation 11:12, Revelation 12, verse 6, Revelation 13, verse 5, and note this is written after the time of Jesus. John tells us that the holy place will be desecrated 1,260 days before the end, which is fulfilled if Jesus does indeed shorten the time from 1,335 days, as foretold before Jesus' time by Daniel. Again, knowing that Jesus said he would shorten the time, or as indicated here, 1,335 days to 1,260 days, and who knows, possibly even more. So during the revelation to Daniel, before Jesus' time, God is encouraging us to endure, even endure beyond what will be the worst of times, to the 1,335th day. Therefore, John in Revelation is assuring us that Jesus will indeed shorten the time. Now, in conclusion of all this, prophecy number one, prophecy indicates a maximum period of patience with mankind of 120 years from the restoration of Israel in 1948. And Jesus' promise, of course, is that time will even be shortened from that. So that's one. And if you can look at one of our first of these episodes that we have posted on our website, talks about how they picked the date of 2068. That's the farthest out date. And then number two, the acceptable year of the Lord, or the Jubilee, promises a restoral of all things and elimination of all debts. Isn't that what we're looking forward to? And number three, the holy place will be active in the end times. There will be tribulation before Jesus returns. And the fourth thing we should look at is two possible Jubilee dates are in our future, which occur before the 2068 date. And they are 2028 or 2037, depending on whether the Jubilee begins the 50th year of 50 or the 49. And we will experience tribulation before Jesus returns. Jesus is returning. Tribulation is coming. And remember 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 16 and 17, where it states that we are to comfort and encourage each other with the fact that Jesus is returning. This is a good thing, even though there will be tremendous tribulation. The holy place will be set up, and this tribulation period will begin when the abomination of desolation desecrates the holy place, bringing in the final few years which God, through Daniel, encourages us to endure. But these 1,335 days will be shortened, possibly to 1,260, possibly even more. If the next Jubilee and Jesus' return is in 2028, then in 2022 or 2023, we should see the holy place resume worship in Israel. If the next Jubilee is 2037, as I believe, then we shall see the holy place resume worship by at least 2031 or 2032. Could be in place sooner, but it's the tribulation that comes as a result as the abomination of desolation after it's set up. Now remember, no one actually knows the date, but Jesus tells us to keep watch. Matthew 24, verse 42 to 44. So next time we'll discuss the rapture. The rapture which will occur, but there is a disagreement whether the rapture will occur before the tribulation of the end days or whether it occurs at the very end. Please encourage others to review these end time updates. The first Tuesday of each month we hold a meeting in Ukiah, and then these get posted. Usually takes a week or two. And please encourage others to review these, and they're posted on the course on the website under this 2068 End Times tab. Now, before we're going to go to some questions from the group here tonight, I want to give some updates from the news, and then we'll open up to the floor. So here's some updates from the news, talking about tribulation. During the past several weeks, we have heard repeated accounts of China flying dozens of military aircraft at Taiwan and its army training for an amphibious landing in Taiwan. Many believe it's just a matter of time before they invade the island nation, as it's long been their goal to annex Taiwan to China. Will the U.S. defend Taiwan and become involved in a war with China? One that could escalate into a horrific nuclear confrontation. Will China strike first at American interest to keep it from defending Taiwan? All questions. Now, Russia, another big power player in the world. They recently unveiled a missile which can travel at many, many times the speed of sound and strike faraway targets in a matter of minutes. China also tested a similar weapon of mass destruction that circles the Earth, and you just don't know where it's going to come down. It just keeps circling, and it can do that several times and then unexpectedly will drop. And because of that, our radar will not be able to pick up that missile until its last seconds. The words of 1 Thessalonians 5:3 come to mind in light of these technological advancements by Russia and China. As it says there in the Bible, while people were saying there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them. Is this shoe ready to drop? Let's see here. We also have a little bit about Gog and Magog, talking about it in the Bible. In Ezekiel 38 and 39, it says, another potential flashpoint for war lies in the Israeli-Syria border in the Golan Heights. For the past few years, the aligning nations and the buildup of forces in Syria have closely matched the prophecies of Gog and Magog, as described in Ezekiel. At times, this war seems very close, but so far lacks the needed spark to elevate the tensions to all-out war described by Ezekiel. Let's talk about economic turmoil, the economic problems of our times. When Jesus opened up the third seal in Revelation chapter 6, verses 5 to 6, he talks about great economic turmoil resulting due to hyperinflation. Anybody experiencing any inflation lately? I believe the U.S. has been on the edge of such a collapse for several years. The printing of money and the enormous debt will someday destroy the economy here and cause great economic turmoil throughout the entire world. Many economic experts predict dire conditions through this winter in America due to soaring energy costs and critical shortages of supplies. They believe that a financial crisis similar to 2008 lies in the near future, and that, in fact, will affect the whole world, not just America. And, of course, one of the updates we've given periodically is a relationship of COVID-19 and, of course, whether that was created in China or something else. Actually, if it was created in China, it was created by American funding of the lab there, but that's ironic, isn't it? But also there's another big death going on, and that's called abortion, and that's almost never talked about. There are 400 people a day on average dying from COVID-19. Fewer than that today. It's 180 some, I think, this past month, average per day. But 400 a day average over the entire thing. You know, there's 4,000 babies aborted every day in America. Hitler exterminated 4,000 a day during World War II, and he exterminated 6 million Jews. We've been doing this in America, and for the past 10 years, we've exterminated 60,000 babies. America is poised for a great, great problem. Last time we had some questions about abortion. We talked about that, the conception of life, and 60 million being killed. You know, church was removed from the schools in the 1950s and 60s, and now what's being taught in schools is social evolution, socialism, evolution. These are the things that are being taught. This is, you might want to refer to my book on science and origins. It's this book here, Science, Origins, and Ancient Civilizations. That's the first book I wrote. And my background is science. I was in microwave electronics. I didn't get involved in ministry until I was approaching 50. I didn't even open a Bible until I was approaching 40. So that's where I've been. Anyway, so I've been around the block. I've seen this happening, and I know that we're going into great tribulation in this world. I can see it. Whether this is the end in this period up to 2028 or whether we're looking further out at 2037, I don't know. God knows. But we are to be prepared and start warning one another. We should be involved in studying these end time things. Another thing that came up in questions was about Daniel's 70th week, Daniel 9, the end times, and of course, I think I covered that pretty well here. I think most people see Daniel 9's prophecy of the 70th week as being the end time we will see going in before Jesus' return, coming up soon. However, I believe that's, like I said, that Daniel chapter 9, 70th week is the week at the end of the millennium, because it does bring in, according to Daniel 9, the result of that is the removal of all sin and the elimination, restoral of righteousness, everlasting righteousness. And that really only happens at the end of the millennium after Satan is released. So anyway, please encourage others to tune in to these. Once a month, first Tuesday of each month, live in Ukiah. Come and ask questions, get responses, and please pass these on to others. Let them know about this, to come to Target Truth Ministries. They're recorded, preserved there for you to see. And God bless you all this week.